Hello, my viewer. This is Health Now Show with Jane Karaoke. I am a counseling psychologist. Health Now Show is your health friend. And one thing that I'm very excited about is that we look at issues about your health, your mental health, and your physical health. And we walk with you this journey. And in life, there are very many things that come on our way, on our journey of life. And some of them, they may not be seen to affect our health directly, but indeed they do. And that is why today I have a guest who is, first and foremost, one who knows God. And the reason why I've said that is because of the journey that she has walked. One thing that is very, very common in our communities today and in the world today is alcoholism. And it's sometimes so passive, so hidden, that the way it enters, the way somebody is introduced, sometimes one is not able to stop. And today we are going to hear somebody's testimony, my guest's testimony, talking about her journey. How did she get into alcohol? What were some of the issues that she went through? And where is she now? Has she recovered or is she still in it? And that is why I am very, very excited. Very excited to host Madam Nkatha. She's going to introduce herself further, and she's going to tell us what is this issue, this thing called alcohol. When I say that, I'm sure somebody is saying, but I take this amount. Everybody in my family takes. But we are going to listen to her. We are going to hear her story, her testimony in the journey. Without further ado, I welcome my guest.
Thank you.
Beautiful Nkatha. Beautiful Nkatha.
Thank you so
Karibu
much.
sana.
Asante sana.
Yes.
Pastor Jane.
Yes.
Namesake.
That's a nice one. That's a nice one.
Namesake.
Yes.
My name is Nkatha Mwenda.
Yes.
And Jane Nkatha Mwenda.
Yes.
I use Nkatha Mwenda. Have used for so many years.
Yes.
I love the Lord as my personal savior.
Amen.
I love Jesus. I am a mother.
Yes.
I am a nutritionist by profession. About 15 years in the industry. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the chairperson of Graceful Youth Recovery Center, which focuses on alcohol and drugs awareness, the drug abuse, prevention, awareness, and advocacy. And I also am the founder of Sober Living Youth Summit, which is summits we launched in November, on the 30th of November in Kiambu County. And the vision is to have these summits that brings experts in mental health, addiction space, professionals, and lived experiences in entrepreneurship. And most important, lived experiences of people who have been through addictions. And we invite the youth from all wards. For instance, the 30th, we invited the youths from Kiambu County, and we had people come from far and wide. And we also had invited Nakada, who graced the occasion as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the highlight was to ensure that the youth could be able to come to a forum where they could hear, they could listen, and engage with those professionals, know where to seek for help. Also for us to understand what is happening on the ground. And this is no pun intended. When we speak of bottom-up approach, it just means that we brought the top officials in all these areas, brought them to the ground so that people can be able to hear what they are saying. Some people don't know where to get the professionals' support, because psychosocial support, rehabilitations are there. But what is the way to access?
Mm-hmm.
And because we are talking about youth empowerment, we also wanted to highlight that, yes, you could aspire to be employed. Have you ever considered also entrepreneurship? So we bring people in the community who have businesses, who have a story that is of inspiration, and you never know, someone who's bold, who's a youth there, who can even go and approach these entrepreneurs or get a contact. It is God who is in the midst to know
Yes.
what it was about.
Mm-hmm.
And the highlight at the end of that meeting, I remember the last speaker was a 21-year-old public speaker. He has a speaking organization. They train you to be an orator. And I remember him coming speaking to the youth, and he always carries his Bible. So how a corporate meeting was transformed into a revival meeting. I tell you, 5 people said yes to Jesus.
Amen.
And there was also a prophetic word that there was to be birthing of organizations, new beginnings. And even those who had come to speak, you found them going to the front because there was an altar call for that. But that was the Holy Spirit, So that is the kind of meetings we want to be doing. We are addressing addictions, and we are bringing in all aspects, from the spiritual to the professional and the lived experiences, so that now we can have impactful conversations. I remember even the Nakada, the head of the Central Region, who was present, Mr. Amos Waruyu, he was just saying, I like the setup of this kind of meetings. For them, they've been doing prevention outreaches differently. And so when he came and he saw some of the professionals he has met in this field,
Yes.
and we are sitting down to listen to different panels, it was like, maybe we need to pick a few things from here. And that is humbling, because these ideas were placed in my heart by God. So that's what I am in summary.
Yeah.
So I remember you have asked about this alcohol, what it is, and how I came about it. I want to first say,
probably just before we get into that,
yeah.
What you've just explained, that like your day to day, what you do. I heard you say you're a nutritionist by profession.
Yes.
And I'm looking at what you've just said, that your work entails, even in drug and substance, or even alcohol, that you're taking the whole person, you're looking at the whole person. How is their finances? How is the person relating with other people?
True.
Are they able to get jobs? Are they able to sustain themselves? If they leave alcohol, or they stop taking alcohol, how are they going to manage their lives? Those kind of things.
Yes.
And I'm seeing a wholesome kind of a setup, and that's what you're saying, that a wholesome kind of a setup where this person is able to become who they have always wanted to become.
Yes.
Now we will get to more of what you're doing in terms of supporting these people. And as we were talking with you before, you talked about you're concerned mostly with the young people, the youth, where the issues of alcohol is like a day-to-day thing, a lifestyle for some of them. So before we get into this, because we'll get into that in the course of the show, and Kada is seated with me. And this is not where she started. The beautiful Nkada that is in front of me. She started somewhere. And now she's talking about a recovered alcoholic. And where is this coming from? Where did Nkada start in terms of alcohol?
Yes. I thank God. I was brought up in a very stable home, loving parents. I thank God they're here as well. They're very supportive. Never lacked for anything. I have 2 siblings, and so we grew up well. Went to high school, well, primary, secondary, and I always aspired to be a pilot. And I remember in primary school saying that, and I was quite chubby as a young girl. I remember, children say the truth.
Yes,
So they would say, no, I used to say I want to be a flight attendant. That's what the names. No, it's a flight attendant. Then it was an air hostess.
Yes.
So I would say when I grow up I want to be a air hostess. And the children would tease me and say, "I utangusha ndege, you're too far," such things.
Yes.
And
Body shaming of some kind.
Body shaming, and children are very frank.
Yes.
So I kept saying, how can they tell me I cannot fly? And so my dreams changed, and I said, if that's what it is, then why not be the pilot? And I have no choice but to fly this aircraft from one place to another. And so that dream did grow through high school. And when I completed high school, I told my parents, and my father was glad to even share that the company he worked for, I never knew it had an aviation, the largest aviation maintenance in East Africa. That's in Africa. And so that's how I got into flying school, because obviously the aviation company had a flying school. So off to Wilson, and I started out as a private, as a student pilot. I must have been 18 years.
Yes.
Like I've said, brought up strict home, Christian values. There was the emphasis of do's and don'ts, obviously. And I look back and I say, hey, maybe that environment I got into now, there was a assemblyhood of freedom. That time there were less girls flying. In fact, the national carrier you could count the number of pilots, women pilots. And I remember looking up to one particular one and saying, when I finished my career, I have to join that particular airline. She was an inspiration, and she continues to be. So in flying school, just like any school, there's ground school, and then there's the hours you fly. You are trained by an instructor, and when you attain your first solo, which is the opportunity to take the aircraft on your own, you have some hours you do on your own. So it's if you're not in the air, you're on the ground. So it is during that time that I made friends, and just innocently, one day someone says, "Hey, by the way, have you ever smoked?" And I said, "No." Would you try? Would you want to try? I'm like, In my mind, I'm being told, hey, smoking is not good for you. You know what your parents tell you. But there's this temptation that it is here.
Yes.
So I took. In fact.
And you want to fit in with your peers.
Exactly. And something I've never shared in any other station, because I have spoken to quite a number of people,
Yeah.
And even my testimony sharing in different platforms. And I've never admitted that. It was a cigarette, and it was also something they called stundu. Stundu was, was weed. Oh. So you have those two. I've carried them home. I mean, what? And I in the evening, we lived in a spacious compound, and there was
a
cattle shed.
By a friend.
And I want to go and try at school. So I want to try.
Oh, yes.
So in the evening, when it's dark, I decide to go out. Yes. I remember just taking a puff of that they call stundu. Where it took me, I said I never want to go there. I thank God that was never a substance I used again.
Yes, to do.
I don't know what I saw. I think I saw the house go up. I saw myself elevated. And I said, this one never. So obviously I went back to school the next day, and I told the guy, take back, the remaining part. I told him I can never even dare. And he asked, do you try the cigarette? And I said, no, but I'll try today, because this one, malimi peleka. So the next day I tried the cigarette, and it wasn't as well pleasant, but it didn't take me anywhere. It was just defiance. You're doing the wrong thing, and maybe you're feeling, is this how it is? Because at that time, I have to admit, there had been a lot of banners or posters everywhere talking about how this brand is smooth all the way, or this and this and this, because also those influence.
Yes.
When you glorify or normalize drugs, the child is looking and saying, okay, this looks cool.
Yes.
Even if it is written it's not good for under 18, the fact that it's in their full glare or in their environment, or even the people around. My parents I never saw any of them smoke or drink. But obviously there were those I saw in my environment at the flying school. After that experience, it now was those gestures of, what are you doing after school? Let's pass by the pub. And again, maybe because to fit in or things like those, you'll find yourself sitting with them. And I don't remember the first sip, but I'll tell you it was not tasty. But that is how casually I was introduced to cigarettes and alcohol.
Studio, that
one
one
never.
we left.
That one. That one never.
That one we left.
Where it took me.
Yes.
Never.
Yes.
That one I didn't ever use it. And so that's how life is. I was as a student pilot, I took a couple of months. And so drinking was casual. Obviously, my parents noticed in one or another, and they would ask, what is that going on? In fact, the highlight was one day we went out with family friends. In fact, my relatives, my auntie and uncle, it was a family outing. And because of getting used to having a drink after school and trying to hide, maybe going home early and sleeping or things like those. Now here we are on a Saturday afternoon. We went to the Ngong race course, and we're having fun, and we're asked what we're having. Then I asked for a malted drink, and everyone looked at me.
It's like,
my mother was shocked. Like, what? An 18-year-old is asking for what?
Yes.
Even no one there is drinking alcohol, and you're asking for what?
Yes.
That is when I believe.
This is our child.
Yeah. What is going on?
Yes.
I think that is when, when you're in your own world of doing certain things, and it is approved where you've been doing it, you assume it is okay.
Yes.
So that's when I saw, there was a concern. And obviously, from then, after being asked what that was about, and the warnings and the precaution, being told, it's not the right way to go. Obviously, I promised not to do it again. But then I was now doing it in hiding, so I didn't keep the word. And it was not heavy drinking, or it was not heavy smoking. It was just experimenting. Now, that was how it was introduced to me. I did get my private pilot's license, and I had already started looking around for places to go pursue my commercial license to progress, because you need a commercial license. I was looking for places in South Africa, America. The cost seemed less there, and even the experience, and as well as the weather. Most of these areas, the weather is good all around the year. Because even here in Kenya, because of the different seasons, there are days there would be no visibility, and therefore you will not fly. Or it would be a rainy season, and some days you will not fly. So when you're looking for a commercial, when we're looking for a place to do get the commercial training, then it was automatic. We're looking at places where the weather is all round, and meaning you would take a shorter time to get the license. So as the excitement is there that I will progress, my parents told me, why not to consider going to university, as they sorted themselves out, and they were very clear. We're just sorting ourselves. They didn't quite elaborate, but they just mentioned, as we sort ourselves out, why don't you go to the university, do a diploma or something? Would it be great to be a pilot with all this experience, even a document, a certificate, or a diploma? Even why not a university? So I was referred to a family friend at University of Nairobi, and just by going there to the admissions, I presented my results slip, and they were saying, why do you want to do a course, yet you have been called to pursue a degree in nutrition and dietetics? Pastor Jane, I will admit that it was the worst of my life. Why? Because I already saw that this would be the way I would go, and especially for my parents at that point in time. Because remember, I've been told, go to university briefly.
Yes.
Now here it is, I've been called by
And
merit.
the university is not a brief.
It's
is going
not
to go like for
brief.
4 years.
And it is by merit. I had no intention to break the news to them when I got home. But obviously, because they had already referred me to somebody, when I got home, they had already received the news that I have been called to university, and there was celebration and joy. Now, I want you to understand that this is a child who was brought up in privilege and even has pursued aviation.
Yes.
The reality of going to a public school and in a career path that they had not chosen is where now the depression. I'm talking out of retrospect, looking back.
Yes, yes.
Because then I didn't know it was depression, but I did go to the university, and I was sad throughout.
Because your ambitions, your goals are not in nutrition.
Yes.
They are in aviation.
And as a young child of now 19, you are not even looking at it as, didn't your parents explain to you that they were going through something? You're not thinking of it like that. You're thinking that your parents hate you. They are not considerate. In fact, when I was in that university, I was really upset at the parents. And that is how most young people perceive when they do not get what they desire. Even yourself in your expertise as a psychologist, there are those things that someone will perceive a thing in a certain way as compared to someone else. And there are some things that will cause someone to be resentful, and I believe that's where it began. So how did I cope? So in campus, to cope with this feeling of hopelessness, defeat, I'd be like, how
the
can
wrong
I
environment.
Yes, environment is key. So what I did is, as I studied, I also started drinking more than usual. So if I was not in class, I was having a drink at the student center. And during that time, and this happened in my first year, there's a time I did drink quite much, and there was an attempted rape. So that also just broke my spirit further, and even the dreams and I used to have, a white wedding, men, I'll get married one day, just went down the drain because I hated men from then on. And so how I coped? The drink.
Yeah.
Because alcohol gives you, it is a depressant, but it does give you, it has psychoactive properties. So your dopamine levels will go high, so you'll be happy and jolly. And it is a shortcut, it's
like
a quick fix.
A false happiness.
Thank you, a false happiness. So that is what I was looking for. But if you sat down with me and looked at me, because I looked through my photos then, you would never know this is a girl who was drinking or was distressed or was battling something. But when you would drink, I noticed, and even as I have studied what alcohol is, addiction is when you have no control over your drink. It's about sitting down. Why are you drinking? If you're drinking to get high, that is where the problem is, and that's what I would do. So I did clear my university studies in 3 years instead of 4, because during the summer or the long holiday, I would go back to school. And I remember during those summer time, there was once I was paired up with the exchange students. So obviously we are living in privilege because the students are coming from America. And my joy was not even about the fact that you've been assigned someone from abroad so that they are not stranded and they have someone to guide them. For me, it was the allure that obviously if they're here, there'll be travel. We'll go to Mombasa, we'll go to Masema. For me, it was just the opportunity to have a drink. Yeah. So it was not class, it was having the drink. And it was a coping mechanism. Yeah. And once I finished the university, I got a job And this time I got an international
You were
job.
able to go through the
It-
nutrition that you didn't want to.
Yes, I
And
did.
you
And it's
did
the
well.
one, and it's the one that has been my foundation. Yeah, it is the one that even opened me to the world, because my first job was okay. I didn't sign the contract, but I remember looking for a job aggressively.
Yes.
I remember going into particular health store. Then it was not in every other outlet today as it is today, but I went there and I saw the place I would sit. It was not an office, it was in the middle of the aisles where the supplements were.
Yes.
And I said, no, that's not my life.
Mm-hmm.
When we discussed the pay or the salary, I was reminded, not me.
Yes.
So I kept knocking doors, and an opportunity presented itself. A lady who till today is a mentor, who then was the marketing manager of an international company covering the East African region. I met her at a function, someone's house, warming, and I remember then I used to carry a floppy disk. Tumetoka mbali, now it's flash disk. Then it was a floppy disk.
Yes.
So I remember printing out my CV
Mm-hmm.
and being introduced to this lady, and sharing my CV and telling her what I can do, and I was the MC at that. Was I the MC at that housewarming? I must have spoken because it was a relative, cousins, relatives event, and so the lady gave me her number. I tell you, I called her every opportunity I got, and she would tell me, I'm coming from Uganda. Why don't you call me next week? We can talk. Next week on the day, the first thing I do is call her. Tells me, okay, can you call me in 2 days? I tell you,
You call her. You call her after 2 days.
On the point.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that job, and I covered East Africa, and she is the one who trained me to be a speaker. The company had a range of supplements and is in the field of network marketing. So there's distributors who may not have knowledge of the product. So the key is to educate them on the role of these nutrients and why you're taking supplements and why natural ones in that matter. And there's no town I don't know in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, because that's what we covered. The company based in America, so every year we'd go to America. The African office was in Johannesburg. So I was always in an aeroplane going somewhere. And guess who were the first officers? My former classmates in flying school. And so it even got more discouraging. Instead of seeing it as a positive light, that look at me, I'm a nutritionist, I'm traveling the world.
Now you're the passenger instead of
exactly. And at times I would console myself and say, or maybe God intended for me to travel the world as a passenger, going to preach good tidings, because that is a health message. But I'd find myself even in those foreign lands, not to enjoy. The highlight was not that I had been maybe to San Francisco or to Atlanta or Johannesburg or to Kigali or Bujumbura. For me, it is where is the pub after we finished work. And it is just that comfort. So people use substances to comfort them because they are used to that particular thing. We talk about addiction, so it could be food. Some people are addicted to food. Food comforts them. Some people it is pornography. Others it is masturbation. It is an addiction. What is that thing that you're using obsessively to give you comfort? Some it is gambling. So for me, what would give me some solace or comfort was the alcohol. And that life continued. I worked for that organization for about 9 years. I resigned because at times here if I don't remove myself, they will remove.
I'll be sacked.
I know. So and because obviously with hangovers, we will cause lateness to work, will cause you not to be at your 100%. So that the alcohol started affecting my work, and so I got out, started my own company, did consulting, even did some talk shows on some top networks in the country. as a consultant independently. Then another American company came looking for me. I worked with them for another 2 years before I resigned. And
all this time, you also, even when you are consulting, you're also taking
now what would happen is, and that's why I keep emphasizing, many people think that they may not be alcoholic because they don't drink every day. But the highlight here is, if you have no control over your drink when you sit down, that is where the problem is. So I would even be off alcohol for a week, a month, but the day I sit down to drink, it's like you've opened the floodgates. You're drinking to get high. You're not drinking to just feel mellow. You know how people say two for the road. Or, You open a bottle of whiskey, it has to finish. You're already high, you still want to continue drinking. That is where the problem is.